Gentlemen, start your engines. Special report. News item. Preston Thomas Tucker, 1903 to 1956, was a visionary who created and briefly produced the car of the future known as the Tucker 48, named after its model year. This car was only known as the Tucker Torpedo as it was being designed and promoted in Michigan. Eventually, 51 of these cars were built in a Chicago factory during 1948. Only 47 survive today. Most of these 47 are on display for the public. The Tucker 48 is a fastback sedan. A fastback has a car body style whose roofline slopes continuously down in the back. A sedan carries 4 people or more and has a permanent rooftop. News item. Preston Tucker was brought up by his mother, a teacher, after his father died of appendicitis attack when Preston was only 2 years old. When he was 20, he married and worked at numerous jobs that all pivoted around automobiles, whether it was repairing them, building them, or even selling them. Living mostly in the Michigan area, he lived in Memphis, Tennessee for a short period of time and worked as a sales manager. Eventually, he turned up at the Indy racetrack where he honed his skills as an automobile designer. News item. The Tucker 48 represented quite a departure from the standard fare offered by the big 3 automakers, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, later known as Fiat Chrysler. Long, low, and substantially wider than most large cars then available, with sleek lines reminiscent of a rocket. It had doors that slid up into the roof and 6 chrome-plated exhaust pipes. Its unique safety features included headlights mounted in fenders that moved with the front wheels to eliminate the road as the car made a turn. A windshield made of shatterproof glass, seat belts, disc brakes, and a heavily padded dashboard to protect front seat passengers in the event of a collision. In another unusual twist, the driver's seat was positioned in the middle rather than on the left, with separate passenger seats on either side. News item. Engineering-wise, too, the Tucker was different. It boasted a gigantic, fuel-injected 6-cylinder engine mounted in the rear that its creator claimed could hit a top speed of 130 miles an hour, maintain a cruising speed of 100 miles an hour, and deliver an astonishing 35 miles per gallon gas advantage. In addition, it sported a revolutionary power delivery system of hydraulic torque converters that Tucker insisted would eliminate the need for a clutch, transmission, drive shaft, and differential. News item. The American public responded with unbridled enthusiasm and buried him in an avalanche of letters and inquiries. But first he had to secure some factory space. The federal government leased him a former B-29 engine plant outside Chicago, Illinois. Tucker then set out to line up potential investors. However, he soon found out that in return for their financial support, they expected him to surrender control of his company, a notion he found intolerable. News item. Tucker then came up with a rather creative way to finance his dream. Although he had produced nothing more than an idea, he began selling dealer franchises and quickly amassed some $6 million that was to be held in escrow until he delivered the first Tucker. But the scheme prompted an investigation by the SEC, the first of many such probes. News item. In May 1948, working in conjunction with the Justice Department, the SEC launched a major investigation into Tucker's business practices and the viability of this car. The bad publicity and lawsuits that ensued effectively disrupted production, spooked creditors, and sent the company's stock price plummeting. Finally, in January 1949, the Tucker factory was forced to close, and Tucker was ousted from his own organization and replaced by 2 court-appointed trustees. News item. In June 1949, Tucker and 7 of his associates were indicted on charges of mail fraud, stock irregularities, and conspiracy to defraud. Tucker himself hinted darkly that the big 3 automakers and their supporters were behind this attempt to destroy him because of the threat he represented to their domination of the auto market. There is no question, however, that Tucker had made some powerful enemies in Washington who repeatedly denounced him as a con artist. News item. The trial dragged on until January 1950. In the end, the jury found Tucker and his associates innocent of all the charges against them. However, Tucker was left bankrupt and his reputation was in tatters. As a result, he was forced to sell his remaining assets, including the 51 vehicles that had been completed before the plant was closed. They would be the only Tuckers ever manufactured. News item. During the early 1950s, a more subdued but still optimistic Tucker tried once more to develop and market a new kind of car. Before he could pull together all the necessary financing, however, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. Newsflash. Preston Tucker has succumbed to the disease lung cancer in 1956 on the day after Christmas. News release. The 1988 film, Tucker, The Man in His Dream, premiered. It was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and Jeff Bridges played the part of Preston Tucker. Further details of this and other events will be found in the book titled Classic Muscle Car Trivia. Is composed of 150 interesting trivia questions and answers about various makes, models, engines, and transmissions of the classic and muscle cars. This book also traces the evolution of car companies along with their mergers. There are 2 questions on each page. The corresponding answers to these questions can be found on the back of the same page. You are looking at types of examples of questions and answers that will be provided. The time frame for these classic and muscle cars is between the middle 1950s and the early 1970s. Higher insurance rates and EPA emission standards contributed to the decline in the early 1970s. The website again is www.litrivia.com. Litrivia is Littrivia. It's spelled with 2 T's.